Thank you, Andy and Lynn, and thank you, Mike, for that question. We'll go ahead and turn now to the discussion of the next chapter. So we have Laura and Katya here to present on their chapter, Have Interest Will Not Travel, and I'll turn it over to you two.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you, Andrea and Lynn, for your insightful chapter as well. It's been really great to listen to all of these webinars and see all of this amazing work that came out of our seminar. And I do want to say a special thank you also to the Center for Engaged Learning at Elon and to Jesse as well for this webinar series. I think it's been a wonderful way to think about and think further about this book and the work that we did together. We were 7 participants in our group from 6 different institutions, but 2 of us are presenting today. So I'm Laura Boudon, and I'm currently Director of Study Abroad Programs at Georgia State University in Atlanta. When I participated in this seminar, I was Director of Study Abroad at Florida International University in Miami. And joining me as well today is Katya Levintova, who is Associate Professor of Political Science and Global Studies at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. And we also were the authors, all 7 of us, of Chapter 4 in the book as well. We won't talk about that much, but our work is also in Chapter 4. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So we just wanted to speak a little bit about our group and the research that we did. We were 6 quite diverse participating institutions, and we were all interested in student choices and global learning patterns. So some of the institutions represented included FIU, University of Wisconsin-Green Bay, Western Carolina University, Bentley University, Kennesaw State University, University of Oklahoma. I think I have all of our, so very different universities, some public, some private, some small, some large. And one of the things that really fascinated us as a group was the differing levels of commitment to international education and the structures for global learning. So we kind of split down the middle. Our institutions, 3 of our institutions had pretty elaborate structures for global learning, all different based on the environment and the institution, you know, where we were based. And then others did not have those structures in place. So we were really interested in, you know, does the presence of these structures make a difference for students and the choices that students make and the patterns of student choices? Next slide, please. So particularly focusing, that was just kind of like a very brief overview of like our group's work, but particularly focusing on this chapter. So as you know, most studies focus on why students do study abroad. You know, what is it that students are looking for in study abroad experiences? What are the reasons for them to choose study abroad? So this particular chapter that we're presenting today is actually focusing on why students do not study abroad. And at 5 of the 6 institutions that I mentioned that were part of this survey, 181 students answered surveys regarding why they did not study abroad. And there were specific open-ended questions that we asked the students regarding why they were not participating in study abroad. And in terms of how we worked with the surveys, we did word cloud analysis and also content analysis of the words that the students were using and choosing to use with regard to why they were not participating in study abroad. And then we also had a follow-up questionnaire getting into more detail with the students, and that follow-up questionnaire was completed by 8 students.
So I think the next slide, please. So as Laura said, we did 2 surveys, and the reason why we did the second survey of students who did not participate in study abroad is because originally we wanted to see what were the differences between people who did study abroad and people who didn't study abroad. Did they have the same patterns of trying to package various global learning experiences? Because obviously, as Andy and Lynn mentioned, study abroad is just one of the options when students come to our campuses and try to engage in global learning experiences. So the second survey was a control group in essence, but also provided a very rich material because most studies of international education or global education concentrate on the people who do study abroad, who are much more involved and engaged in this particular learning activity. So when we looked at the second survey, which was not quite as maybe interesting to us from our original research question, we found a lot of quite unexpected results. So we looked at the open-ended question, which point blank asked students why they did not study abroad. And interestingly enough, obviously, we found one of the reasons was time, another reason was financial burden, which was expected. But almost a quarter of the sample came up with other circumstances, which we labeled life circumstances, or students with adjectives who were not able to go and study abroad beyond kind of the normal expected financial or maybe work-related reasons. And those 4 reasons that we uncovered, which were quite unexpected to us in kind of the order of their significance, were student parents, then student veterans, student athletes, and then students who utilized a lot of student support services on campus. And on some occasions, those reasons overlapped. So, for example, we discovered that a lot of student parents were also student veterans, and that presented almost unsurmountable double obstacle to trying to utilize and engage in study abroad. So their differences were different. All 4 reasons for not studying abroad are very, very different. So, for example, student veterans already considered themselves very well acquainted with international context. Many of them have been deployed, for example, abroad. Student parents obviously had very different reasons for not studying abroad. Student athletes cited schedules, NCAA regulations, coach support, scholarship requirements for not studying abroad. The mental health services clients also cited a lot of anxiety and other mitigating factors. But the outcome was the same. And it was very surprising that regardless of the type of institution that students were coming from, that those reasons really applied regardless whether you went to a small private university, whether you went to regional comprehensive, whether you went to R1 institution. So all of those reasons were present, and something that we didn't expect to find when we first started our research for Chapter 4, seeing how students might be responding to institutional structures and what global learning experiences they might be having. So next slide, please. So Laura, I think you next.
So, we also obviously are thinking about our new reality in study abroad as we think about, students who already had a difficult time being able to study abroad. And as all of you, I'm sure know, in our current climate with COVID-19, offices of international education have been particularly hard hit with COVID-19. And I will be honest, some of the 6 participating institutions since, the time that the seminar met have seen a significant decrease in their institutional commitment to international education. As an example, I will mention Kennesaw State, for example, here in the Atlanta area. At the time of this work, they actually had an international education fee, which was giving them a significant scholarship fund for students. And since becoming Director of Study Abroad Programs at Georgia State, I have learned that Kennesaw State no longer has the international education fee, and so international education has become less important there. You know, thinking about the particular groups of students who are not able to study abroad and the reasons for them to not be able to study abroad, obviously COVID-19 is going to affect these groups even more than other groups of students regarding study abroad. And, you know, this is really a moment for us in study abroad and international education to consider how we respond. You know, this summer, pretty much no one is either traveling abroad or studying abroad. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to think about how do we allow students to have these meaningful experiences without actually getting on a plane to go to a country. I think there's some elements that are difficult to reproduce, but I think there is a lot more that can be done in the virtual space than has been done or considered previously. And so, you know, at least in study abroad programs at Georgia State, we have a number of students who are doing virtual international internships. From, you know, they're doing their internship abroad, but they're obviously in their living room or their couch in Atlanta. And also some students who are doing virtual study abroad opportunities. An example of a virtual study abroad opportunity would be CIEE offered a Japanese art course online to students. And so we have a student in the College of the Arts who is learning about different forms of Japanese art, which if she were not doing this virtual study abroad, you know, she would not be able to be having this, this experience. And I think the other aspect, which maybe I didn't put on the slide, is really further conversations about the role of virtual exchange at universities. And this can not just be like exchange at a partner institution, but virtual exchange in a classroom where faculty are exchanging ideas and course content and assignments with faculty abroad at other institutions. And virtual exchange through, you know, organized platforms and systems like COIL. There's a lot of different options. I mean, we all know that this is not the same as study abroad, but at the same time, it is providing opportunities for students to learn from others who are different from them, sometimes to work with them in teams in ways that they may not be able to, thinking, you know, in the College of Business, doing case studies or managing team projects, you know, across classrooms, across, you know, the world. That really provides opportunities for students that they otherwise would not have. So I think it's really incumbent upon us to be thinking outside the box during this time and to enable students to continue to have those experiences that we want them to have, and maybe be able to be more inclusive in those experiences if no one is getting on a plane, you know, to have some of those experiences.
Thank you, Laura and Katya. At this time, we'll take questions. So if you have a question, if you would either raise your hand or just indicate in the Q&A section, I'd be happy to call on you.
Jesse, there was one more slide that actually had some questions. Had some questions for our participants to think about.
Fantastic. And so, Katya, go ahead with that.
Yes, thank you. So maybe paradoxically, what we discovered is some of the unexpected reasons for students not participating in study abroad might be somewhat helped by the current situation, because the virtual international internships go beyond just purely financial support that we envision as the biggest maybe helping hand for students who are not studying abroad. So maybe this is the questions that we are thinking about, you know, what obligations do universities have to facilitate the equitable access to study abroad is one of the high-impact learning experiences, and is it purely financial? In our case, obviously it is financial, but it's much more than that, right? It's very structural. So maybe this current situation, again, very paradoxically, provides an opening to facilitate participation by student parents or student athletes or student veterans, students with some health issues as well.